I wanted to share a couple of words about the significance of this evening. And then to teach a text that I believe in many ways epitomizes those values. Our hope is that also people will share. This is being recorded for other family and friends, some of whom are in Israel, we're tomorrow night. We have Gil and Elena who are joining us on Zoom, so that this brings comfort not only to them, but to all of us who missed Rabbi Kentof, our friend, teacher, and colleague, and neighbor, Dov, so dearly. Tonight marks the Shloshim. Shloshim, which means 30, refers to the month of mourning that is counted from the day of someone's burial, from the day of someone's funeral. According to Jewish law, in most cases, the Shloshim ends the formal period of mourning. It doesn't mean that you forget about the person. Doesn't mean that your heart mended. It means that the formal acts that we associate with mourning come to a close at the end of Shloshim. And that is the case for spouses, children, siblings. For parents, actually the mourning period continues for a full year. A teacher of mine once observed that in the course of life, when we lose a parent, we know that that is in the nature of what happens in life. People do not live forever. We hope to live to a ripe old age. Eventually, a child will be called to bury a parent. Parents represent something special to us because they give us life. It's also a relationship that we know over the course of time that it will happen. We don't, God forbid, want it to be in it. But it may be easier sometimes to accept the loss of a parent who has hopefully lived to a ripe age. But when we lose any of the other relatives, spouse, someone with whom we share our lives, child, or even a sister or brother, it calls to mind our mortality in a way that can be very unsettling. And so my colleague once said to me, perhaps that's why the period of mourning, counterintuitively, for a parent is a full year, but for other relatives is just a month. Because after a month goes by, when you've lost your spouse or child or a sibling, life can still be very, very cognitively dissonant. It's as if our tradition is saying, you have enough of a burden. You don't have to keep saying Kaddish. If you want to, you can. But you're still carrying the burden. For parents, we're asked to say Kaddish for a full year. Because while we may have many siblings, while we may have any number of children, we only have one person who is a father and one person who is a mother, who in partnership with God gives us life. So our relationship, just by the very nature that we are alive, That is the responsibility that is a gift that our parents gave to us. Makes for something a little bit. So I share that only against the background of, why 30 days, why Shloshim? For us, of course, while it's a liminal moment, we're not going to forget that. And so, as is customary in many communities, when a leader in the community has passed away, somebody of great Torah or great righteousness, it's customary to come together and to have a moment, an evening, an hour of truth. So what I'd like to do this evening is to begin with a teaching and then to recite Kaddish de Rabbanan. That's the prayer that is customarily said after study, the form of the Kaddish, really the Rabbi's Kaddish. And then invite Alina and Gil to share some words with all of us here. And then I want to invite anyone, come up to the mic because we want to make sure those who are online can hear us. We also invite, I see Tali, I see Smell and Debbie. If anybody online would like to say a few words, we'll be able to hopefully hear you as well. So here's my teaching. By the way, it's not mine. I didn't write it. But I immediately thought of Dove, and I hope you'll see why. So let me read and translate and then just say a few words. Amar le Rabbi Hanina Rabbi Chia. Bahade Didi Ha Mitzet Has V'Chalila I Mishtecha Torah MiYisrael Mehadrana La Mipil Pule. Rabbi Chia said to Rabbi Hanina said to Rabbi Chia, you know what? If somehow, God forbid, the Torah were forgotten in Israel, the power of my own intellect would be able to recover it. I have the mental power, the memory, the brain power to figure out anything. Just rely on me. He obviously didn't have an issue with self-esteem. Amar le Rabbi Chia le Rabbi Hanina. Rabbi Chia responded to Rabbi Hanina. Hade didi kalim. Yeah, well, I too would ensure that the Torah not be forgotten in Israel. In fact, I have. Ma Avidna, what did he do? Azilna Shadina Kitna. What did I do? I went and I planted flax. The Gadlina Mishbe. And then I made nets from the flax. I took the flax that I planted when it grew to a certain height. I harvested, made nets. Tzayedna Tave. And then, once I made these nets out of flax, I trapped deer. And I slaughtered the deer, according to the rules of kashrut. I gave the deer meat to orphans. And then I took the skins and I turned them into scrolls, into parchment. Ve'arichna megilata uchtavna chamisha unshe. And then on the parchment, made from the deer skin, I wrote out the 5 books of the Chumash. V'salikna lamata, umakrena chamisha yinuke v'chamisha chumashe. And then I took these Chumashim, these 5 books of Moses that I made from the deer skins that I took from the animals I caught in the flaxen nets that I wove out of the flax that I planted. And I took these books, these Chumashim, to a town that had no teachers. And then I taught the 5 books to 5 children. Umatnita shitata yinuke shita sidre. And then I taught the 6 orders of the Talmud, which in that time was still oral, to 6 other children. And then I told them, Ad hadrana v'atina akura hadadeh v'aknu hadadeh avdila liv Torah delo tishbacha Yisrael. And then I said to them, until I return, teach each other the Chumash and the Mishnah. And it was that way that I preserved the Torah from being forgotten in Israel. So what does this have to do with Rabbi Kentof? I made a few notes. First thing that he did was to teach children mutual responsibility, empowering and believing in each child. Unlike Rabbi Hanina, who said, hey, it's all right up here, he taught 5 children who would teach 5 other children who would teach 5 other children. Don't taught children by also empowering them. In junior congregation, you had to sing. And Rabbi Kentof and Alina would walk around and make sure that you were singing. And if you didn't sing, we're going to leave. I want to thank Mari and Mizrahi for sharing that memory with me. But Rabbi Chia, the story is about teaching mutual responsibility. Don't invert the pyramid. Make the base as broad as possible. Second, nothing was beneath Rabbi Chia. He did what he had to do. He also taught the value that every task is important. Rabbi Kentof wasn't above schlepping, moving things around. He didn't say, you do. He led by way of example. And he taught that everything for the cause is good and important. Did you really need to have a fake passport when you went to Israel on an El Al plane that was in this room, that was made of chairs? No. But yes, it made it all the more special and meaningful. Purity of intention. A man who goes to the lengths of not just getting a chumash, but making one. Planting the flax, making the nest, catching the deer. Kids have a way of knowing when you're authentic. Kids have a way of knowing when you believe what you are saying. It reflects who you are. Part of Rabbi Kentof's success was that integrity. He didn't have a hidden agenda other than to teach Torah, to make Judaism precious, to make children know that Torah could be fun, and to help them feel good about their heritage and being in a community. He lived his teaching. And if he knew how to shepherd animals, he would have also given the meat to the orphans. Because that speaks to not just teaching, but also to acts of loving kindness. And we could spend a lot of time just talking about his acts of chesed. And the last thing is that the story teaches that it's all connected. And what you do playing games with flashlights or a Noah's Ark, wearing your Moshe outfit, or bringing camels in to the parking lot, having Abraham and Sarah's tent, the campouts, that it's all part of Torah. All of it. And that there is a Jewish way to camp out, as much as there is a Jewish way of being in that room next door with a siddur in your hand. So whenever I have thought about that teaching about Rabbi Chia, I've always thought about Dov Kentof. He was, for us, here and in our time, our Rabbi Chia. And we were very blessed. So I'd like to ask everyone to please rise for Kaddish de Rabbanan and invite members of our community to respond with the responses to the words of the Kaddish. Rabbi Hanania and Akashi Omer Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zakotik Yisrael B'Ticha Lalahem Torah Mitzvot Shneamar Lenachem Betz L'man Siko Yil Torah B'Yem Kaddish de Rabbanan Yit Gadal V'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbi.
Amen.
V'alma divera kirutei v'yamlech malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimeru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shnei rabba mevorach v'olam v'omei omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha
Breakthrough.
Laila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechanata damiran v'yoma v'yimeru amen.
Amen.
Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan al Tamidehon v'al kol Tamidehon v'al kol man de'askin v'oraita di v'atra haden v'di v'chol atar v'atar Yehei lachon shlama rabba china v'chista v'rachamim v'chayin arichin u'mizona v'bika u'furkana min kodam mabuhon givishmaya v'yimeru amen.
Amen.
Hey shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim tovim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen.
Amen.
Seh shalom b'mrama u'berachamav yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen.
Amen.
May be seated. I'd like to invite those who are on Zoom, starting with Lena and Gil, Tali, who'd like to share a few words with us who are gathered here in the
Holly, do you want to go first? Yeah, sure, I can. Um, I'm in South Dakota now, and today is one of those days, just like on my father's funeral, that in the midst of extreme heat, suddenly today on his on this day when we're all coming together at the end of Shloshim, that the weather changed dramatically and that it became cool outside. I'm wearing a sweatshirt, and it always, my dad hated heat and humidity. And so, it's just a sign for me yet again. In the last 30 days, there have been many signs that I've seen in nature that he is still present. This evening, I'm going to be building a fire in my father's honor, sitting by the campfire. But we have to do those things, I think, and pay things forward, and shed a positive light on our relationships with other people and how we live our life, how we connect with nature, because I know that that's what my father would want from all of us, and what setting that intention of being present in everyday moments, instead of just constantly living in the past or wondering what will happen in the future, that we have to live right now in the present moment. That's the message that I get from my father on a daily basis when I connect with him out in nature. So normally when I'm hiking, I'm wearing his hat. Those of you who follow me on Facebook have seen me out hiking in the Black Hills, and I wear his hat because he's going with me wherever I go, and he will forever. That's it.
Very nice, Dolly.
Love you, Dolly.
Very good. So when I think about my father, Dov Kentof, I think of a man who lived his life really based on action and not just talk. He was always there to help someone when they needed support with a family issue or help their kids. I remember a visit here to Jacksonville years ago when someone called in the middle of the night, and they just called to say thank you to my dad for the help that they gave to him, that he gave to him, and the big difference that my dad made in his life. This must have been 2 a.m. It was shocking that someone would just pick up the phone and call just to say thank you at that time. But really, he was always kind and always patient and always found the good in others. And I can't tell you how many times that I called and complained about how difficult it was in school or later in my practice. But my Abba was always there listening and encouraging. And I want to tell you a funny story, though. That's all the serious stuff. And he was always great at those things. But I went camping with him one time, I remember in particular. This is a crazy story for those of you who haven't heard it. We were camping in the mountains of North Carolina and decided that we would camp at the bottom of this hill next to a stream. And my great idea was to take a tarp and put it underneath the tent. Well, the edge of the tarp extended beyond the edge of the tent. And that night, a great big storm came and the water fell off the sides of the tent and collected onto the tarp and underneath the tarp and turned the tent into a waterbed on the inside. And water started to seep through the seams. It was a cold night. It had to be maybe in the upper 40s, maybe. And I said, Abba, we have to get this tarp from underneath the tent, or we're going to flood inside this tent. And it's just going to wet all the sleeping bags and we'll become totally soaking wet. So he agreed that we should take the tarp out. And he was outside the tent to my right. And I grabbed the tarp on the left. He grabbed the tarp on the right. He was wearing his underwear and nothing else, freezing cold night. And on the count of 3, he said, okay, echad, shtaim, shalosh, pull the tarp. And I pulled the tarp, and a tidal wave of water soaked him entirely. And I looked back, he was to my right, and he was completely drenched, screaming, you idiot, what have you done? What have you done? You're crazy. Anyway, it was soaking wet, freezing cold. We got back in the tent, and somehow managed to sleep that night. The next day we continued hiking. We certainly had a good story. But, you know, I really miss him and I miss hearing his voice. And I know his soul is in such a good place. And I know that hearing all the stories that you are going to have to share with him is going to bring him a lot of nachas. So thank you for letting me share that crazy story.
Thank you, Gil. I'd like to invite others who are online on Zoom who would like to share. Just you know, it doesn't have to be anything lengthy. It doesn't even have to be a story. It could be just an emotion, a feeling, a wish. So please. He's still muted.
Whoever wanted to speak needs to unmute.
Yes. Whoever's speaking, Bruce. Let's see, we do have you. Anybody else? In the meantime?
Maybe they want the folks here to go first.
Okay. Go ahead, Bruce. You want to say?
Are you? We're having a hard time hearing, but we
Just
will,
inviting you to say a few words. Look like you were going to.
I would just comment, and sort of based on following up with what Gil said about the thank yous, is that obviously there's a lot going on in our community, and there's a lot of unfortunate things that are happening with people in their lives right now. And we could always depend on Rabbi Kentof to be the one to be checking on people constantly. And our community misses that. And I think the one thing that we could take away from all of this, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to honor his memory by checking on each other in his spirit. And we will always miss that in our community in times of need, where he had a knack and a sense of people who needed to have someone reach out to them. And I think if we can, the best honor that we can give to him would be to, as a community, take that upon ourselves to think of those who are in need and those that may need a helping hand, to do it in the spirit of Rabbi Kentof, who is no longer able to do it physically, but I know spiritually he's doing that.
I'd like to invite folks who are here this evening who would like to share some thoughts. Wendy, I think I saw your hand first, and then George, and Danielle. Come on up.
Hello, Kentof family. My husband and I moved here with our daughter, who wasn't quite
Closer to the
four,
microphone so they can hear you.
in about 1990. And Rabbi Kentof came up to us and just immediately wanted to get us involved. He didn't know us from a hole in the wall, but he got to know us. And he brought us in like he brought in, I think, anybody who lived in the Jacksonville area. He was amazing. He knew I was working an hour away from Jacksonville as a programmer, 60 hours a week. But he said, I think you could teach Hebrew, because my background was Israel and so forth. You could not say no to Rabbi Kentof. So I wound up working after a long day and loving every minute of it. I didn't know that I would love it as much as I did, but he brought such love to the way he taught, the way he encouraged teachers to teach. It may not be politically correct to say this, but if a child or a parent or a teacher complained about a kid and said, there's something wrong with this child, and they list 5 things that was wrong with the child, Rabbi Kentof could find 10 things that were wonderful about that child. And it made you think differently and made you teach better. I will also say that somehow there was a magical elixir of how he and Alina taught students who came out of Alina's classroom, knowing Hebrew better than any children I've ever seen before or after. And it is a tribute to the love that they well, that Alina still has, that Rabbi had, for all of us, for all of our kids, for all of the parents. It is rare to find that, and he was just a magical person, and thank you for all you allowed him to give to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. George? No, I think George, we'll get to you.
I came in this room. And you don't.
You have to talk
to
into
the
the
mic.
microphone.
I got talking to the mic. I don't want to lose my hearing aid here.
I can't hear.
Right? Anyway, I came in this room tonight and I see it surrounded by things. We know how Doug loved camping. But there's many times, we were Kadeem advisors in US Life. I remember one time, well, really more than one, he used to just set up right in here in the center or in the other rooms, but making it look like a fireplace, a little light going in there. But I remember one time he came in there and it was dealing with Zadie. And he was talking about there, and he had other people coming in there and telling stories, what they went through and all that, to give them the kids their history. And I'm looking at a couple of young kids right here who now, well, you got kids of their own. Wow. So that's all I really want. I'm sorry. Thank you. Anyway, I'm just saying is Deb and Alina made us all feel young, made us all here. We had kids, but we were part of his family, and he made everybody part of all of our family. And they both just was so special. And Lena.
Thanks, George. Danielle, I think you had, no, I thought I saw your hand. Sheldon. Dr. Sheldon Kaplan, no. Okay. A different doc. Different. We'll take any, Kevin, go. Kevin.
Hi guys, hi Elena, so good to see you guys. I'm sorry I wasn't out there for the funeral, but my thoughts were with you guys and I was there. But Rabbi Kentof, is one of those special people in my life, and it's amazing to me how one man can have an effect on so many different people's lives. We all felt like he was our rabbi, our special person. He just had that ability to make everybody feel special. Not only that, but through all of my life events, he seemed to be there, and it's almost like he grew with us from being a little kid to being in high school and being USY and Kadima, and then even as we grew older. I can tell you a funny story, which I don't even know if my parents know, but Adam Frisch, myself, David Moscovitz, he said, we're gonna go to the Chabad house and do something different this year from Megillah. And so he took the three of us with him, and we went, and boy, did they read different from the Megillah. And we read and drank, and we certainly shouldn't have been in high school, but we did, and he made us all walk home, which was close for me. But he was one of those guys that taught us how to live our lives, and taught us about Judaism and friendships and leadership, and the things that he taught us are things that I still use today, and I try to teach my kids on a daily basis. So for that, I am forever grateful. He'll be with me forever. The things that I do and think, I always use the things that he taught me. He was a special man, and for sharing him with us, I will always be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley.
David told me to prepare notes because he knew I would ramble. Doug Kentof had an aura about him. He shared his visions and brought them to life in the most creative ways. Chip chuck, he would say, and it happened. Our house committee never knew what to expect and held their breaths as the outcome of his creativity. My favorite event, which involved the entire congregation, was the world of our grandparents. The center building was transformed into a shtetl, a village of little huts. Think of Anatevka from Fiddler on the Roof. Our men, and some of them are here, Arthur and Ronnie, they constructed the huts. Our students played their parts, and our sisterhood provided the cholent, the zimmers, the chopped liver, the strudel, you name it, we had it. We had the cobbler's hut, and I have a picture of David as a cobbler here tonight. We had a milkman. We had the yeshiva students with their attached paper payers, studying and shuffling. We had a chuppah with a bride and groom. I think Marcy was the bride. Klezmer music, and even Tevye on the roof with his fiddle. And then, as the rabbi said, we had the flight to Israel. You would enter the building and you were faced with the kotel, the western wall, where notes were placed in the crevices. He transformed this gym into an airplane. Not just the seats, as the rabbi said, but it had the surrounds and the windows. And they even had a movie. He had a TV there, and the kids were watching this movie on the plane. The passengers, the LL stewardesses, luggage and boxed lunches. Everybody was given a passport, which was stamped at various exhibits. There was an archaeological dig outside with artifacts buried for the kids to find treasures. And as Rabbi said, we had camel rides. We always strove for authenticity. You've heard how he climbed the roof of the building dressed as Moses carrying the 10 Commandments. He portrayed all the biblical heroes wearing the same beard, robe, and walking stick. And the kids never knew the difference, whether he was Noah, Abraham, or Moses. His teachings of the Holocaust were all hands-on. Every year on Yom HaShoah, he would set up a museum of commemoration. He put on plays with special readings, which left our youth with a unique understanding of this terrible time in our history. How can I forget his powerful portrayal of Janusz Korczak, again wearing his robe, as Korczak went to his death with over 190 orphan children in his charge. Our youth conventions were the pride of the Southeast region of United Synagogue Youth. Over 300 kids would take over this JJC with ruach like you've never seen. The convention themes were brilliant and the kids learned so much in their breakout sessions. As many of you know, in the early 90s, I was involved in the resettlement of Jewish New Americans in the former Soviet Union. My biggest supporter was Rabbi Kentof, blessed memory. He was there for me every step of the way. Whatever you need, he would say. As my son David mentioned during Shiva, Dov put his heart and soul into the acculturation of our new friends. He invited them to his home for vodka and baked potato patties. Of course, Alina had to do all the work. Where the joy of their singing and music overcame language barriers. We enjoyed picnics at Goldhead State Park, and we spent many Shabbatot in their apartments. He was a Pied Piper, the young and old. Rabbi Dov Kentof touched many hundreds of lives over the years. I will remember him as a prince among men, a man whose kindness and menschlichkeit will be remembered and spoken about for many years to come. Thank you, Alina, Gil, and Tali, for sharing your wonderful Abba with us. We will miss him dearly.
Thank you, Shirley. And let me just ask if there's anybody who's joining us on Zoom who would like to say a few words.
Rabbi?
Yes, no.
Mel Gottlieb, I'd like to say something. Jacksonville has lost one half of its dynamic duo. Every life cycle event that my family has had for the last 40 plus years, Dov and Alina made it more educational or more meaningful or happier. And sometimes they just made it, help to make it more bearable. We're gonna all miss Dove, the community will, the Jewish community, the whole community. But I think Bruce Horowitz hit it on the head. You know, in memory of Dove, what we really all need to do is step up to the plate and do what Dove would have done and help make a conscious effort to help more people in our community and to be there for each other, because that's what Dove would have done. And if you really want to do something in his memory, that's what we all need to do. And we're going to miss him. And Alina, we love you and we're here for you.
Thank you. I love you too.
Thank you, Mel. Is there anyone else on the line at the moment? Care to say a few words? Thought I saw a hand. Maybe not. Oh, okay, there we go.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I knew Dove, Sandy and I knew Dove on a different basis. I've met Dove in 1972 in Orlando, and most of our interaction was not in a synagogue and not in a traditional, I'll call it an observant environment. But we met each other and our relationship continued through all those years with the entire families and in major events and several trips to Israel, both families and one particular occasion where it was an all men's trip, including when I strung on Gil to go, which I think he, in retrospect, realizes it was a special mitzvah. And Alina was there. She was the only female there, but she was a glue, and I think she was the glue all the way through his life. And there was a right arm and there was a left arm, and together they created something special. But what I want to say is this: that knowing Dove on a different level, Dove, wherever he went, whether it was whatever environment it was, he possessed a ruach, a spirit that he brought into any room or any place that he was. And just the idea that the children don't remember a Rabbi Dove Kentof, they remember a Dove Kentof. This was Dove's way of sort of sitting on the floor and being only 2 or 3 feet tall to talk to the children. And everything that was said is so true and meaningful, but it's hard to truly capture the elephant print that he put on everyone that he interacted with. And that special touching is what I think all of the people here today are going to carry, have carried, and will continue to carry forward. Because that spirituality is something that defies definition. And so he's missed on so many levels, whether it's 2 feet high or 6 feet high. He was multi-talented, but he didn't consider himself talented. He was Dove.
Humble, very humble.
And and he didn't look for the kavod. He didn't look for the honor. Neither does Alina. This is something that's part of their DNA. And
well, Orlando lost out 40 years ago. Dove and Alina left with their 2 wonderful children, and we're very disappointed. And to this day, people say, oh my goodness, how did Orlando let such a fabulous family leave? So
to the benefit of Jacksonville. So
yes.
We missed a lot, but we still shared a lot, and we're carrying that forward.
And he had a big impact on our children, very.
Yes.
So we will miss him. And we share lots of stories with Alina. And he's great. He's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam and Sandy. That was nice.
We have lots of stories, but we can't bore everyone. We could spend nights and days reminiscing.
We
about
don't want to
it.
tell all those stories.
Yeah.
Some of them we probably should tell, right?
If not tonight, I hope you will in the days to come. And I have to say though, Sandy, we want to apologize to Orlando. We're very happy that things happened that they did.
I didn't hear what he said.
We have time for a couple of more people. I know, let me get, do you want to say something? Go ahead. Good to see you guys.
Jill, Elena, and Tali.
Talk closer to the microphone, please.
Jill, Elena, and Tali, I want to thank you for letting us, as well as the whole community, share in this wonderful man for such a long time. This man is so iconic. He's like a rock star in Jacksonville. And when we go to restaurants with Lena and Rabbi, people would flock to him. He's sort of like someone alluded to before. He's like a Pied Piper with older people and young people. And handsome looking man, very intelligent. I remember having dinners at his house. It was always wonderful. And he was also a talented musician. He played a beautiful harmonica, and I often enjoyed when he would serenade us with his harmonica, and Bill would play the guitar, and Shuki would play the violin, which really memorable. As a matter of fact, when Josh got married, we went up to the wedding there, and the three of them put on quite a show. And the other thing about Doug is that he always was available for you at any time of the day or night. I remember when I worked in the hospitals, he would come if one of the congregants or even someone who wasn't a congregant that was sick in the hospital, he would make a special trip to come over there and give them solace and comfort. And that's the kind of guy he was. And the same thing with Elena. I remember my younger daughter, Danielle, was having a little bit of problems with her Haftorah. The care at that time, they maybe weren't getting along well. And Elena took her single-handedly, Danielle, my younger daughter, under her wing and helped her with the Haftorah. And because of Elena, she got her confidence and she did beautifully. So I just want to say that Rabbi was like the heartbeat of this whole city in Jacksonville. And like a patient once mentioned to me that I never forgot when her loved one had passed away, she said to me, you know something, she said, the song is over when the melody lingers on. And that's the same thing with God. And what a beautiful melody it is, it will always be, and it will always be in our hearts. And I want to thank you, Bill, and Elena, and Tyler for sharing this wonderful man with us and being so supportive of us and everyone in the community. Thank you so much, and we love you.
Harriet? And so.
Okay. Alina, I'm addressing this to you. I love your children too. But I just want to thank you for being part of our life. And everything Kentof ever did for us. We will forever, ever be grateful. We love you very, very much. And we're here for you.
Elena, Holly, you know, I knew
Doug, not just on a personal level, but on a professional level. There would be times when he would ask me to come and speak to the youth group about a variety of different issues with regard to kids and teens and things like that. And unfortunately, he would call me on Sundays to do this thing here in the auditorium. And I would say, Doug, it's football season. How can you make me come and do that? He said, come on, you'll do great. You'll love it. The kids will love you. And in fact, it was very inspiring for us all. The kids were just wonderful. I think there might be some kids there who are adults now that were here. And he just inspired them and inspired us as a family. And personally, I think from the very beginning, when Doug took our boys under the wing and taught them and educated them, and Alina, you were part of that, I'm reminded of the song by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Teach Your Children. And so, teach your children well, the Father's help, and so well, Dove taught the children. But then the other part of that song is teach your parents well. And through the kids, Dove taught the parents. And that's kind of what happened with us, is that Dove taught our boys and inspired them Judaically and Hebraically. And, I came from a small little Reform synagogue, and, Dove inspired me through my kids. And now I feel like I'm a part of the synagogue. And it's Dove and Elena, the two of you did that. So I want to thank you from all of us to all of you. That Dove is in our hearts. And this is where it'll always be. And we care about you. We love you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
As our hour draws to a close, we're going to recite the Amalei Rachamim, a memorial prayer, and segue to a trip outside to the great outdoors. Was the backdrop, the canvas, for so many of Rabbi Kentof's talents and his magic. And for those who, even to this day, one of the legacies that Don has left us is the Saturday night fire sign. If you were here for a Kadima or USY convention, things would not have been complete without a fire sign. So we're going to invite those who are on Zoom to walk out with us, so to speak. I'm going to bring a camera to keep you tuned in. And we're going to light the Shalom sign. Not only because it was such an important word to Dov, because it also reminds us that even as we say goodbye, we continue to welcome him through memory, through his values, striving to keep the things he believed in alive. We will say shalom to our friend, teacher, our neighbor. We will pray for shalom in the world and in our hearts. I'm going to ask for everyone to please rise for the Amalei Rachamim. Then we'll sing our way out to the fire sign and end with a moment of light against the background of the cloud. El Amalei Rachamim Shochen עמסי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלה קדושים וטהורים, הזוהר הרקיע נזירי, את נשמת מורנו וידידנו, הרב דב בן פנחס הכהן, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן, תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, אסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure. To the soul of our teacher and our friend, colleague, mentor, Rabbi Dov and Pinchas HaKohen, Rabbi Dov Kentof. May the Eternal One shelter him, shadow of God's wings. May his portion be with those who have been granted a place in the world to come. May his memory always be a source of inspiration for commitment to the ideals he embraced, the ideals of Jewish community, friendship, and of kindness. May he rest in peace. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen.
let's invite everyone to join us as we head outside to Shalom. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, I. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael. God Avinu Chai, God Avinu Chai, God Avinu, God Avinu, God Avinu Chai, God Avinu Chai, God Avinu Chai, God Avinu, God Avinu, God Avinu Chai. Die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. 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 Die, 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 yum, die, die, die. Yadda, die. Yadda, die. Yadda, die. Yadda, die, die, yum, die, die, die. Yadda, die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. Invite everybody to come a little closer. Few other people just coming. We'll give it a moment. Oh. Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Amcha Nasim Leolam. Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Amcha Nasim Leolam. Yatahu Adon Lecho HaShalom. Yatahu Adon Lecho HaShalom. Elamcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tekov Be'einecha Livarech Et Amecha Yisrael Bechol Heit Ubechol Sha'ah Yishlomecha. Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab.
I did realize that's because of her. I really should have.
They got a bucket.
Um,
Right there.
Can't tell if they're trying to say something or not.
No. Yeah, because the camera's outside. Can you hear it? Hello.
Ooh. You could do something.
Well,
Okay.
Frank's not worried. I'm not worried.
Okay.
Let's walk her. Glad you were here. Glad you were here.
I'm okay. He's wrapped around wire.
I got my flashlight going.
Yeah, I'm still on Zoom with everyone.
Alina, this is Wendy to say thank you for everything you and Dove did for me and my family. And I'll tell you that Dana still does tutoring. Now she's in Chicago doing it. And it's as a direct tribute to you and Dove. And I thank you. We all thank you.
Thank you. I'll relay the message to her. Right here.
I'm not sure exactly what the relationship is. She's like the opposite. It was a good show.
But now I understand why. They couldn't burn it.
Are those permanent? Permanent just for this reason? With the towers?
It was before me. It was before me.
I guess once they redid the front, they made this.
Boys from campers, like half of them were campers, they were on my bus, and I'm like, we knew the boys, was there one of them that's sick?
We're not gonna capture 20 years.
We're gonna say goodnight to everyone. Alina, Tali, Gil, we love you.
Thank you for joining us. I'll get you guys the recording.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
That was a lot of fun trying to get him out.